Because to apply, you may have children, you may live in a bad neighborhood in Oakland, for example, or anywhere. Now, you realize that this neighborhood is impacting your child in a negative way. All this you see, and all this you know. You dread every morning when your son walks to school, and you want to make some changes. Well, now knowledge wants to be applied. Well, you need money. International and 48th, you can find a place for $1,500 perhaps, a 2-bedroom, infested with drugs and other people perhaps that are going to impact your child. And that depends on how caring of a parent you are. If you don't care and if you become numb and calcified, that's a different story. If on the other hand, something about you has risen to the surface and no, I don't want my kid to be in harm's way, well, you realize, you have to drop out of school. Then you have to get 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs, and maybe you have to stretch your arms to our strangers. Give me some money. Maybe your parents you haven't spoken to for many, many years. And all of a sudden you have to get over guilt and shame and embarrassment, all that stuff. And then you go to a brand new neighborhood. And imagine if you happen to be a person of color, and all of your neighbors are white. And you realize, things in theory sound really good in application. No, it's nearly impossible. Now, there comes this other stage where you say, I've had sex, it was fun. I played the Messiah figure in someone's life. They were depressed, I took them out. Emotionally inspired them, fine. I had great, riveting, inspiring conversations. Intellectually, beautiful. We sat and spoke about the verses of the New Testament every single day. Great. Then comes a different stage where you say, no, sex is fun, but not anymore. Once in a while, maybe once every 5 years. I'm tired of just being around emotionally broken people. I'm tired of being around intellectuals. I want something else. And that's, I guess, for a lack of a better word, for those of you who may be allergic to this word, you can choose any word that you please. It doesn't really matter. Okay? You say, I want something a bit spiritual. I'm looking for this part of myself, and I don't know what it is. I don't know why the physical, the emotional, the intellectual no longer attract me. I just want something else. Now, you can have a lot of attractive people come your way. You will just rebuff them. You will have a lot of emotionally attractive people come your way. You will not care for them. You will have a lot of intellectual people with beautiful ideas come your way. You're no longer interested. And to lose interest in those things, it means you have to be saturated. And for those of you who may not know what saturation means, let me give you a very, 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 very brief example. And it's a great example. See, this is you. You have a desire. That desire is unfulfilled. You're hungry. You long, you yearn for this desire. And we'll talk about how desires come about maybe in a couple days, okay? Now, what happens when you're dry, when you're hungry like this, you're just salivating. When your desire is satisfied, this is what happens. It drips. When you are in a relationship, you stay in bed with your companion. You even call off your work for a couple weeks. There comes a point where you say, can we just go out for a walk? It's an indication you no longer want to be in bed. Now, if you want to get over the physical stage, you got to be in it, man. You got to be in it for a long, long time. And this is how you graduate. You just no longer, it doesn't matter how many times you go in there, you're not going to soak anything up. Physically, you're no longer attractive to that stage. The same thing is true with the emotional, the same thing true with the intellectual. You have to have read enough books. You have to have thought enough thoughts to realize they're not taking you anywhere. And then you sit there, and that's the number 0. And it's a difficult place to be because it goes against life. Your body is designed to go around Lake Shore, to look at people, to make judgments on them, to laugh at them, to laugh with them, to be inspired, to be attractive to them. Once in a while, your psychology is made to be social. You want to sit and have a conversation. Intellectually, you want to talk about something meaningful. When you enter the number 0, you realize, well, go to the lake for what? Some foolish people walking around the lake with their stupid little dogs. Nothing wrong with that, by the way, for those of you who have pets. Okay? And then you realize that you want to watch a movie, but there is nothing meaningful out there. You want to read a book, but all books say the same thing in a different way. You lose your friends, you have nothing. That's the number 0. Now remember, you can either live the way most of us live until you come to this plateau where you say, I've done all the stuff, I've ended up nowhere. And that's the time where you seek therapy, after a good amount of depression. Or if you're lucky, despite having everything and being hungry for everything, someone walks into your life and slowly removes those desires and replaces those desires with something different. Now that is what you want. That's the number 6. Now, no one can do this on their own. Okay? Everyone needs a Morpheus of sorts. Everyone needs to be inspired by Morpheus, who happens to be the Greek god of dreams. But he has specific kinds of dreams to share with us. You're not there to have sex. You're not there to salvage emotionally broken people. You're not there to have flowery conversations. You're there to grow spiritually, whatever that may mean. Okay? And then after you've attained a good amount of maturity, you go back into society and help other people. Now, so that's the definition to some extent of the 3 numbers, 5, 0, 6. Now in numerology, what you usually do is you add the numbers together to get to a single digit. Now if you're not talking about the master numbers, such as 3, such as 9. So when you add 5 plus 0 plus 6, what you get is 11. And then you have to add the 2 ones together, you get 2. Now 2 is the number for conflict. 2 is also the number of society. 2 is also the number for corruption. So what you have is this. You like sex, but your companion doesn't give you meaningful emotional or intellectual support. But because you've had sex with him or her so often, he's grown on you. But he's grown on you physically, but not emotionally or intellectually. There are moments you wake up and you say, I want to walk away from the relationship, but addiction to his or her body. And remember, you create history with people, positive or negative, and it's very difficult to walk away from the history. Okay? Again, for those of you who want to know how difficult this is, if you take the life of Jesus as facts, the disciples as factual heroes, okay? They physically were attracted to Jesus, they emotionally were attracted to Jesus, they intellectually were attracted to Jesus, but spiritually, they could never understand what the hell this guy was all about. And that's where the denial comes in. Okay? Now, when you read the Gospel of Mark, something interesting happens. He does all these magic tricks. The disciples continue to doubt, and he says, don't you guys ever understand any goddamn thing that I say or do? Okay? So remember, number 2 is always a number for conflict and corruption. It corrupts your relationship. Not all of it, certain parts of it. It means you have 5 good days, 2 awful days. And you will never be in conflict without being aware of something. If you have 0 awareness, there is no conflict. See, there was a show, Prince of Bel-Air. Carlton and Will Smith are driving somewhere. It's just them two in a car. They get pulled over by a cop. Somewhere in Texas, I suppose. Okay? Will looks at the officer and says, we have done nothing. We have our tags, we have our registration, we have our insurance. You have no right to stop us. But the cop was racist. Carlton says, oh, it's just a mistake. See, Carlton is not aware of racism. Carlton is not aware of injustice. So at the end of that particular episode, when they're both freed from the cell, they stand in their mansion. Carlton looks at his father and says, Dad, the officer, he just made an innocent mistake, right? And the father doesn't say anything. Okay? So up to that point, Colton is without conflict. He doesn't know racism. He thinks everybody's nice, everybody's kind, everybody's compassionate. But Will Smith knows. So remember, for those of you in this class who have anxiety, who have frustration, who have confusion, once in a while there is this voice that comes up that wakes you up. There lives a certain awareness, clarity in you about something in your life, and it's an uneasy feeling. Okay? Now, you can either become aware by reading books, thinking, reflecting, and if you don't like it, life will bully you into awareness. Life will tell you you are stupid. You can be all gung-ho about freedom and individual rights and doing whatever the hell you want to do. And you can actually be very proud. Just wait. Life will push you into realizing what a foolish human being you've been. And that's how life is. The prodigal son story is that we just waste without knowing. Okay? Now, so if we were just to kind of just focus on the numbers for a moment, it would be the following. We occupy 3 spaces in life. We are nothing but flesh, pursuing things like food, shelter, and clothing. That's who and what we are, majority of time. There are moments where you realize none of those things are important. You want something else. You don't know what that is. And that creates the conflict. So for those of you in this class who want to be conflict-free, don't be an idiot. If you're a human being, conflict from the moment you're born to the time you die, it's your best companion. I'm not talking about moments where you read a book or someone gives you a piece of advice and conflict goes out the window. Okay? The French existential philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre, his brother, okay? If you want to know what boredom is, and if you want to ever get rid of it, what you need to understand is this. Boredom, you can get rid of. It's going to stay outside of your front door. Once in a while, it'll knock, and I'll walk in. And I'll tell you, you tried to get rid of me, and you were successful for 5 minutes, but here I am again. Boredom, conflict, despair, dread, they are what it means to be human. They are part of who and what we are. Yeah, Miles.
11.
I'm sorry?
What's the meaning of the number 11?
I don't know. It has no meaning.
1 has no meaning.
Well, the number 1 means unity. It means being indivisible. The word individual, it means whole. It means a unit. It means you have a body, you have a set of emotions, and you have a mind. And these 3 work together really, really well. And if you want to know how your body, mind, and soul come together harmoniously, if you're able to stretch your memory back in time, okay, and remember yourself when you were in love, and then remember your companion way back then, 50, 60 years ago, all right? What happened? You laid together. Your body was right there. Emotionally, man, you were consumed, intoxicated by this companion of yours. And mentally, you were focused on her. And sex was like magic. That's your Garden of Eden. Now, what happens is time enters. Physically, you're there. Emotionally, you may even be there. But intellectually, you're now a bit more distracted. So you have sex, it's fun. Emotionally, you're there. But intellectually, you're thinking about rent. Okay? Time passes. Physically, you're there. Mentally, you don't really care that much. Emotionally, you're feeling about what happened at your work. But as a human being, a physical organism, you want sex. So you're there physically, emotionally, intellectually, you're gone. So to be an individual means to make sure that you're... Let's move on. Now, that's too much, man. It's all messed up. Omar.
Is there a way to get out of two? Like you get to
Conflict?
Yeah. Conflict zone. Is there a way to get out of that?
There are negative things about conflict. There are positive things about conflict.
Is it a mentor?
Well, it can be. It doesn't really have to be. It's always best if you're working with someone. I mean, look, we are not the sort of animals that the moment you're born, you come out with tools. We are enormously poor in all sorts of ways, okay? And so it takes you a while to kind of acquire all these tools to be able to kind of survive life in a relatively, okay way. Now, what conflict is, imagine that you're laying in bed and it's comfortable. You woke up, you went to bed at 2 a.m. because you were watching this great movie, Roadhouse. Okay? And you want to come to school in the morning. But you wake up at 6 and man, you're exhausted. 4 hours sleep for a young man like you, it's not enough. So part of you says, stay in bed. This guy, what is he going to say? Some nonsense. Right? I can just read them in a book. Fuck it. The other part says, Amir, you've been here, you've done that, get your ass up, take a shower, go to school. And then what you have, you close your eyes, you toss around, but this other part of you doesn't leave you alone. And now you have this battleground. One will win. Now, if you lay in bed and wake up at 10, you realize there was a quiz. Now you have guilt, now you have shame, now you say, God damn it, man. How many times do you want to repeat the same mistake? Now you begin to punish yourself. It's really, really good because it's a way of baptism. It doesn't mean you're not going to repeat the same mistake, but you get baptized by your own awareness of certain things. There's the past, you've been doing the same thing, it comes back to haunt you, but you also are now aware. You're no longer 18, you're 30. Grow up, right? Now, it could also be the other way, that after many toss and turns, you say, I'm just going to go. Okay? And then you walk away saying, well, yeah, the class was boring. It sucked. It was meaningless, stupid. But I feel a bit more responsible, a bit more mature. There are moments where conflict, because of certain events, are so intense and so big that they turn into trauma. And it's very, very, very difficult to get rid of them. And we'll talk about how traumas come to be, So conflict is really good. That's how diamonds are made. You need just a lot of pressure, but you just need to make sure you don't crack or break under the pressure. Because if you break, it's finished. Conflict is only good if it's productive. But you need to make sure that you don't apply too much pressure. And because young people don't really have the proper knowledge as to what their capacity is, sometimes they do too much, sometimes they do too little. But conflict is good. Iska and then Adrian. Okay, Adrian.
How are you defining brokenness?
So, I'll give you an example. It's going to be a really ridiculous example, but I'll give it to you nevertheless. About maybe 27, 28 years ago, maybe longer than that, I went to Subway in Roseville. And I got myself a foot-long turkey sandwich. I was young then, so I could eat like 5 of them. And there was this young woman who was making my sandwich. She was so unattractive. I can't tell you how unattractive. And physically she had some issues. Now, I know some of you are like politically correct. Oh, that's not a good thing to say. Fine. I had to wait there for about maybe 20 minutes while she was touching the sandwich, looking at it, breathing on it. She was nice enough to make a relatively good sandwich. Then I go home. But I couldn't get her image out of my mind. As I'm eating my sandwich, she's right there in front of me. And I couldn't eat the sandwich. You know, it's like when you watch a movie and it's really horrifying and you lose sleep. You know, it's like what we try to do when we have our kids around. You know, you don't want to put shows that have a good amount of violence because they're going to have nightmares. Their body, their mind is not adjusted yet, you know. And you realize, well, yes, and this is the example. I go there physically, but wherever you place your physical body, it doesn't matter where you go and what you do. The forces out there create emotions inside you, feelings. If my voice is a little too loud and you have sensitive ears, something about you shuts down. Your presence in this classroom becomes broken, fragmented, disconnected. If you raise your hand and you want to be visible, you have an earnest question, and I keep dismissing you, you get broken. And what you need to know about the physical human body is that you have 5 powerful senses: your eyes, your ears, your nose, your taste, your touch. And the moment they wake up and they see something, taste something, smell something, hear something, touch something, it's going to be categorized: negative, positive, pleasure, pain, good, bad. And the truth is, you don't need to read the Bible, man. You don't need to be a reflective human being. When you go somewhere, your nose will tell you, do I want to stay here? Go to any bathroom at Laney College and you say, I'm out. What, do you need to read the Bible? Does Jesus need to come down and tell it to you? Your senses are your messiahs. Okay? They will tell you exactly what gives you pain and what gives you pleasure. The problem with the senses, and these are just the basic things, but you're not a basic 2-year-old where a sonic toy can give you pleasure for 5 minutes. You're like a 40-year-old man. Your eyes look somewhere and say, oh, she's really, really hot. Or he's really, really hot. Okay? But your eyes now create this mirage. She is hot. But because you're 40, you get trapped into the physical attractiveness, then you sit down. Now, because you're a man, and because you're dense, okay, and let's just say you're hetero, you go out there, what are you going to do? You're going to say, so what's your name? Let's just say she says Julie. And the first thing you say, did you read Malcolm X? No, you're not going to say that. How about coffee? How about dinner? How about my place? And then what? So, and what happens is time passes, you guys form a relationship, and you really come to realize, well, damn, she sucks in all sorts of ways. You don't want to be around her, okay? Now, let's move on. Now, yeah, Adrian?
Sorry. In that sense, brokenness, conflict.
Oh, that's right, brokenness.
Brokenness is like disassociation, right? It's like that's kind of what you're saying. It's you go off. You're split. Your 3 things are not aligned.
Yeah. For those of you who are interested in brokenness, trauma, all that stuff, getting yourself out of it, there's a great book. It's by psychotherapist Peter Levine. It's called In an Unspoken Voice, if I'm not mistaken. Get it on Audible. You know, it's a really, really good book. It's not going to do much for you, but except to give you some insights and maybe moments of clarity. But when it comes to applying the ideas that you read in books or in other things, application of anything is enormously difficult, if not altogether impossible. All you need to know is this. I build a shed, my shoulder is out of commission. That's physical brokenness. But it goes beyond that because I'm very physical and active, and I want to go out there and build things. That's how I get off emotionally and intellectually. But because my body now is an obstacle, I'm also emotionally broken. And intellectually, because I want to go buy tools, buy lumber, and make things, I can't do any of that. Okay? Now, I may have a good arm, okay? But it may be that all of a sudden my kids die. Now I'm emotionally broken. Now, whenever you're broken in any way, you're going to have a Messiah in your life. And you don't have to be a Christian. Your Messiah is your mind, your intellect. If you have a refined, mature way of thinking about life, your Messiah is going to come down and say, okay, listen, you were an ass, that's why she left you. Okay? And the truth is, she had to leave you. And then you can cope with this brokenness in a very mature way. If on the other hand, you're just an ass and she leaves you, her fault, she was immature. And you will continue this process over and over again until you're 105, like Hugh Hefner. And you say, yeah, I was wrong. Okay? Now, if you're not broken physically, if you're not broken emotionally, if you're not broken intellectually, now remember, life is a problematic beast. Every moment, at every different stage of your own development, you're going to have a different set of issues. And your Messiah or the mind is going to come down and say, okay, how the hell do I deal with this? I mean, the very fact that you raise your hand and you ask a question, I say something, it creates an issue in your mind. Then without you being aware, you put alphabets and words and sentences together and say, what is brokenness? It's a problem, and you want this problem to be solved. And that is what your mind does. It comes down to figure out, what the hell do I do with this? There comes a point where you're not physically broken, you're not intellectually broken, and you're not emotionally broken. You're actually quite healthy. But there is another part of you, let's just call it the spiritual. You say, the hell do I do? Now that is a brokenness that you can't go to the physical for help. You can't go to the emotional or the intellectual. You need something else and someone else. Rafael.
The example you said, what was your name? I'm sorry. Omar. Omar having to choose between getting out of bed and not getting out of bed, facing guilt, not facing guilt. The person decided to blame himself because he was an ass, because she left, or blaming the other person. Why do we choose to stay in bed, or why do we choose? Why don't we have the revelation every time to get out of bed or to self-reflect and say, I was the ass, that's why she left? That makes sense here. Why do we not always have the revelation? Why don't we not always have the Messiah coming and helping? Why do we stay in that lameness in bed, or in that she's the problem?
There are a few things. First, we are not creatures who enjoy pain. We are not creatures. I mean, one of the nice things about plagiarism is, first of all, it's very difficult for you to find your passion in life. The only thing that makes you authentic, creative, if there is actually something about you that says, I'm a good pianist. We are all very, very, very mediocre people. We are not original, we are not authentic, we are not creative. Because if you were creative, that creativity would force you into being responsible for your own creation. You don't want to talk about Karl Marx, you have your own goddamn ideas. I mean, look, if you read the Gospel of John, it's an amazing book. And I'm not saying it because it's a religious text. For a human being to come before a public and say, you see me, you see gold. I am bread, I am light. 50 times he says, I am. I mean, it's incredible. In the Gospel of Matthew, he says, I am twice. In the Gospel of Luke, he says, I am twice. In the Gospel of, Mark, he says, maybe I am 5 times. In the Gospel of John, I am man. You don't need God, come to me. I mean, that's a human being who knows. Who's been there, who's done that. Most of us are not there. We're not even close, man. And remember, if you're not creative, you're not responsible. Your organism is not going to make you responsible for anything. I mean, look, all of us men dread Valentine's. I hate Valentine. Why? I have to go out to the cemetery. Look at all the space. See if there are any good bouquets of flowers I can steal. Okay. Then go see on my laptop. Write this creative note. Honey, the past 50 years, it's been heaven. Thank you for the children. I love you. I hope my wife doesn't hear any of this stuff, but nevertheless, right? And you realize, well, yeah, you're writing all the stuff. You know, you're stealing all these flowers. You're taking her out to In-N-Out. You know, getting her, you know, like animal fries and animal this and animal that. But deep down you say, I hate this day. I really want to go home and just play video games. You know, now versus, man, when you fall in love with someone, you go rob a bank and it's like this beautiful divine experience, you know. So when you talk about guilt and all that stuff, it's because, well, you are forced into doing something you don't really want to do. Now, if there is a gift in your life, in other words, if all of a sudden you hear Al Pacino has made this brand new movie and you've loved Al Pacino and you know that when Al Pacino plays and speaks and screams, the earth shakes. Now that's a gift. You don't have to do anything, man. Just sit back and be inspired. And even if you have to pee, you say, you know what? I'm going to hold it until the movie's over. And you do it lovingly, patiently. Now, if you happen to be very lucky to find yourself in a very inspirational space, you have a gift, man. You have a gift, and you need not to make any effort. You don't need to make an effort to listen, to pay attention, to take notes, to memorize or remember anything. It just happens automatically. And it's something we'll talk about at a later date. It's called love. I'm not talking about like just cheesy physical love that grows into shit. Okay? And forgive me for those of you who are in love. Trust me, it'll turn into shit. Now, I mean, it doesn't have to be like bad stinking shit. It'll just be shit. And there's nothing wrong with it. You know? Shit happens and you eat it, right? Now,
why do we stay in bed? Why do I stay in bed all the time? Why do I take that?
what?
Like the question, I guess the question I have, why do I repeat that thing? Why do I not find my Messiah, quote unquote, or my inspiration?
Well, look, it's like saying I keep wanting to be LeBron James, I keep playing, but I can never like grow to be 9 feet tall.
Yes.
Well, who the hell knows? You just don't have the capacity. I mean, look, you don't have to be a Jesus Christ, man. Just enjoy being around one. Why is it in this country everybody wants to be the next Steve Jobs, Taylor Swift, Eminem, or just be a regular douchebag, you know, and be okay with once in a while being inspired. There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm done.
You know, everybody is pushed into being something like extraordinary. We are mediocre, lame ass people. Accept it. It's beautiful.
And enjoy it?
No. Well, you can't enjoy being an idiot, but you have the ability to forget that you are one. You know, and then look, There are so many idiots around. Idiots can fall in love with idiots. Nothing wrong with that. And they can have their idiotic romantic moments.
If you're lucky enough, you can forget that you're.
Yeah. And one idiot shits on another idiot, and the other idiot says, "Oh, beautiful. Give me some more shit." That's how it is. Allahu Akbar, Samin.
I was just wondering about because all this stuff applies to Western world.
And East as well. It's no longer West and East. They all suck. Yeah.
But people in Tibet, the most important version is just being calm.
I forgive me for. I don't care what happened 2,000 years ago, and I don't care what happens in Tibet. I live in Oakland. I'm not dealing with 90-year-olds, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds. It's important for you to keep your questions real.
Right.
If you want to know why people in Tibet are calm, pack up your stuff and move there. Stay there for 2 decades. I assure you will contaminate the entirety of Tibet. You single-handedly. You will take your cell phones, an Xbox, an X-Men, and before you know it, even the Tibetan monk, the Dalai Lama, will come and play Xbox with you. Anyone else? Keep your questions relevant. Embody them. Know where you are, who you are, and just ask those questions that are relevant to you. Rayvon. You don't have class, man. What's the class? So listen, it's good to see all of you.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.